Yeah, well, here it is. Friday morning, 10:02. Yeah, that's what the computer says. So I guess that must be right, right? I have to trust that. And I'm here working on this high quality, high quality camera work here. The 65 Shelby GT-350 model that when it's built is supposed to end up looking like this, except mine is going to be blue with a white stripe because it just looks better than the white with the blue stripe, even though this is how they came out of the factory, or at least the Shelby workshop. Um, okay, yeah, well, I'm just reading it here. It said it transformed the 65 Mustang 2+2. It used to have a rear seat. They took the rear seat out for this. Into the powerful GT350, creating the automotive legend and making racing stripes popular. That's this stripes. Those are racing stripes because racing cars, the sports car racing, not like NASCAR or what was back then USAC. Okay, the kind of open wheel racing with the roadsters at the time. But sports car racing and uh, endurance racing and things like that, they'd have racing stripes. U.S. cars were usually painted red with a white stripe, like when the Ford GT40 won Le Mans, that was red with a white stripe. But yeah, that's how that became popular. That's what the box says anyway, so that must be true too, right? Um, So I'm just going to be doing a bunch of stuff on the car, not particularly in the order in which the instructions say, because it just won't come together very well that way. But just getting stuff done so that it can eventually be assembled um, is pretty much how it's going to work. The body, the uh, the body of the car is going to be one of the last things because that has to be painted before it's attached. So even though the instructions say that's the first thing, put the windows in, I'm not going to put the windows in obviously until after after the body is painted, but before the interior is assembled into it. Well, it'll eventually come together. I'm predicting that this particular model could end up taking most of 2026, especially since there'll be significant interruptions in the streaming schedule because of travel. Once again, this is going to be a big travel year being retired. I'm just getting rid of this little lump of cardboard here on the end because it's really kind of in the way. It's not helping anything, but it's in the way of stuff in the box. Um, yeah, just like over the holiday weekend, over the holidays, the New Year's weekend between Christmas and New Year's, and then after that, I was gone from this stream because I was traveling between the two holidays until like January 2nd. And then other family members were gone, and I was dog sitting, and I was here by myself with two standard poodles who require a lot of attention. So it wasn't really a good idea for me to leave them alone for 3 hours, especially if they knew I was in the house and they'd start getting agitated, that kind of thing. So yeah, but I should be able to do my regular Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule from 10 until 1. It's 10 until 1, not until 2. I don't think that ever changed, did it? the schedule on the intro screen, but that's a lie. I only go until 1 because usually by 12:30 I start losing focus and start making stupid mistakes and making a mess of things, and I don't. That's not the best thing to do. So yeah, through and almost until the end of March. Then I'll be gone for I think about 3 weeks, the end of March, beginning of April, another travel thing. And then off and on through May and June because of either I'm traveling or other family members are traveling. And and then there's another week I'll be missing, I think in July and some days in August. It's going to be kind of off and on, but I'll be letting everybody know here. Um, Actually, it'd be really good if something on social media or whatever actually published the schedule so people wouldn't think that it's disappearing. But I'll be letting people know here during the stream when I'll be on and when I won't be. Um, well, here's parts. This is the bottom of the car. This is the inside of the bottom. This is supposed to not be seen because it gets covered over by the interior and the rest of it, except for the engine compartment, which will be seen. So this is all going to be painted black. I'm going to paint it black on both sides because I don't know what will end up showing and what won't. So this will all be painted flat black, and then there'll probably be these holes. I don't think all these holes get covered from the outside. Some of them get covered from the inside, and then where the holes are, that will show. And I guess I'll just have to touch it up with black paint because what will happen is when I attach the thing, I can't fill the holes in until whatever's attached on the other side, like the shock absorbers here, which you can't see because it's not on camera. Thank you, director and camera guy. Doing a really good job today of doing that. Like shock absorbers go here from the top. And so these will be kind of filled in with the pins, the alignment pins from the bottom. Okay. And you don't want those to be white. So I'll have to touch them up with black paint. But I guess ideally what would happen is that those parts would all be put on and then I could fill in the spots on the bottom and smooth them out and then spray paint the whole thing. But then that would get paint on the rest of it. And I'm not that good at it or that compulsive about masking. So at some point, yeah, some of these things will have to be, touched up. But when I get around to painting things black with the spray paint like this and and these bits of the interior, the tire shelf and the spare tire and the whole cockpit here, that'll all be painted black. I guess the same color of black. It should be different black, but it's not going to be because that's what I've got. I'll just spray paint all of that at once. Not all at once. I mean, you know, in one go of painting. You can tell I'm trying to use up the time here so I don't have to actually do anything. But well, there's that. So I'm just going to put this in a box. I got a box here. I'm not advertising this particular kind of coffee. It's just a box that happens to be a really good size to hold parts. So I'll put that in there to wait until the other parts that are going to be painted black are done, and then I'll paint them black. Here I've got other little parts. These parts, I'm going to paint some of these today. Why not? Distributor cap, starter, those are both going to get painted glossy black. This is the fan that's painted aluminum. And then this are a bunch of pulleys and a belt, and the belt is painted flat black, and the pulleys are painted aluminum. These are shock absorbers. Those will end up being painted black, I do believe, when things get painted black. Shock absorber, color A. A is flat black. So there. Um, yeah, I've got containers for these parts. Oh yeah, other things. Other things. I've got the whole engine to work on. I've got the seats to clean up. They're a real mess. They really did not come, I mean, they're not fitting very well. So that's going to be a good deal of work. So what's happening here is I've got some filler that needs to be sanded. Needs to be sanded so that the seam doesn't show on the top and the bottom. So I'll be doing that. And then attaching the parts to the top so that the front part of this will be painted blue. Okay, and then the transmission part of it, this is from here back, is painted aluminum. Yeah, that's painting. And then there's chrome parts that go, these are parts that go onto the engine. They're chrome. Those are ready to go. And these are the parts that go in there. I'm going to use this for the parts that are primed. Hopefully today these parts will be on there so I won't have to put them in here. And I don't need this tape right now. Well, let's just say that I made 2 New Year's resolutions this year again, just like last year. Last year there was a word I wanted to not be saying all the time, and I did succeed in not saying it. Okay. I did a really good job of not saying that during 2025. This year I've got another word that I'm going to be trying not to say. And so far, in the 2 streams I've done this year, I've been pretty successful at that. The other New Year's resolution is a carryover from last year because I failed at keeping my work surface clear and clean. And this year, I'm continuing that resolution, renewing it, and failing. My work surface is just a hideous mess. It's just really a mess. I've got paints left over from working on the rat fink that are just sitting here and here. They're in the way. And I've got paints that I'm going to be using on different parts of this, but not until next week sometime. And those are just sitting in the way. And the area in which I can work keeps getting smaller and smaller. I'm going to do the sanding first of the seams, okay? And because I really would like to get this primed. I'd like to get this primed over the weekend so I can start painting it next week. And this stuff, it'll get painted eventually, so it's no big deal if I don't get to it right away. I don't know how far I'm going to get today. I'm going to be using initially 400 grit sandpaper because this filler is really very hard actually. And then I'm going to be using much finer sandpaper like this 1000 grit or even this polishing stuff to finish it. And I hope the filler worked. I don't want to have to, I just as soon get on with it. I don't want to have to come back and do it again. but we'll see. So here, I'm going to start with this. The other thing that's going to be important for this year is coming up with stuff to talk about while I'm doing relaxing sanding down filler Dyson Dungeons. Of course, I'll be talking about Dyson Dungeons and our amazing Dungeons and Dragons show, which you absolutely have to watch, either when it streams on Twitch or later on when it appears on YouTube and as a podcast. Okay, so do that. Make that part of your New Year experience. I don't know what's going on with this. Looks like the parts aren't quite aligned. Misalignment of stuff, I guess. I'm not sure. To use the file to get into these corners. Well, I'm going to just rub at this with the sandpaper until it seems like it's acceptable. After it's primed, I'll see frequently, with disturbing frequency, things will feel and look okay, and then they're painted, with the primer, and then they don't, and they have to be sanded and filled in again. Sometimes the flaw doesn't even show up until the final glossy coat is put on, and then there's a lot of sanding, taking down all the paint, getting all the paint off, and refilling and sanding again. But that's just part of it. It's all part of the trying to make it look not like plastic parts have been cemented together, and make it look like it's just a solid piece of metal, which is supposed to be the transmission casing. Is not the thing I was going to stop saying this year. It should have been, given how much I'm saying which is really a zero value sound. It's not a word, not even a very good filler among words. It's just like That's all you have to say. Use this. This is really good for polishing. I got this a long, long time ago, and I haven't been able to find exactly the same thing again. It's wet, dry emery cloth. It doesn't, unlike the other sandpaper, it doesn't get all full of dust. I'm sanding debris. So it's really good at this, and it polishes the plastic almost back to like its original gloss. Now, there's no knowing how that's going to look until it's actually painted. Okay, that's the bottom. That's the part that's actually going to show the most. Now to the top. It's going to be that kind of day. I couldn't even pick up my standing block thing. So I found a long time ago, probably decades now, seriously. I got a book about how to build model airplanes, how to build model airplanes good. It's not really the title, but that's pretty much what it is. It's how to build model airplanes so that they don't just look like chunks of plastic that have been cemented together, which is how my model airplanes looked when I was 10 or 11. They just looked like chunks of plastic that were cemented together. Um, but it talked about all the different filling techniques and masking and different painting techniques and detailing and super detailing. And I have to say that I am not capable, not I mean, just really not capable of doing many of the things that they say should be done to make things look great. Part of it is my age. Part of it is just we all have different things we can do and not do, and some of those things I can't do. So as I as I keep reminding everyone who watches this stream, I'm not a master modeler. I am not a master painter. Ole Brager runs one. You should watch his stream. You can see what a master skilled person does. Ole Brager, Brogger. Watch his stuff. It's amazing. His skills are amazing. His creativity is amazing. And he has good camera work and he edits and his stream is sort of professional as opposed to I've got leftover cameras and microphones and things that I was given. Here, go in the basement and build paint stuff and build models and things and use this leftover equipment that we're not using in our studio because our D&D show is done in a studio with high quality high quality stuff. That's a technical phrase. Stuff, equipment, high quality production equipment, high quality producing by our DM, as opposed to me, who is not high quality. It's not just not. Just have to be honest. I'm not high quality. The stuff I do is adequate. I aim for adequate. So what I'm doing is by watching this stream, those of you who are skill 1 and up to 2 modelers on the modeling skill scale of 1 to 3, occasionally 4. I've seen skill level 4 models. That's pretty scary. Um, so those of you who, like me, are at skill level 1 and up to 2, if you're past skill level 2, you're not going to learn anything, but you might be amused. by this particular stream. Might be amused at some of the things that happen. It's like, ugh, anybody who knows anything wouldn't do what he just did. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with people being amused by my oopses and my attempts to recovering and my snorting sounds when things go. My constant struggle to not say naughty words because we're trying to keep this like a PG level thing. Okay, words. I know words. I have I have in my life learned words. So those of you who are at skill level 1, almost 2, what you're seeing here is making an effort to make the seams go away because models look a lot better when the seams don't show, especially when they're painted glossy or metallic. You see me use different kinds of fillers and adhesives, some of which I use just as a compromise because I can't use other things. Like I can't use CA cement because it just requires a level of precision in positioning the parts that I don't have. So I have to use cements that allow me to um, move things around a little bit before they settle into place. Okay, that actually looks okay. I think it's okay. What I am going to do is clean it off a little bit. Get some of the sanding dust off of it before I start messing around with it more. Okay, these parts go on, and I'm getting these parts on isn't really a problem. And these are separate parts that are actually attached to the engine. Okay, and so the seam, like on these headers, actually makes sense that there would be a seam there because they are attached separately. And I need to look at the instructions to make sure I'm getting them oriented correctly. Yeah, these are the cylinder heads. And yes, if this is the top, this, see this, great. That was great. The detail part here, these protrusions go on the bottom. The exhaust actually comes out there. So this has to go on like this, and pretty much just like that. The question is, and then this intake manifold goes on. Does this go on? Yeah, they should all kind of go on at the same time so that they can be aligned, so that there aren't any, so they don't look misaligned, so that they all look like that, except they fell off. The thing I dropped goes on the front. It's the water. It's the water pump. It goes on like this. And then goes on. It just sticks like that, actually. The this the whole belt assembly thing is on later. And the way the instructions go, they want you to stick this onto the water pump first, is the way it looks, and then oh, it goes like that. Okay. Well, that I wanted to test fit this to make sure I could put the water pump on and paint all of that and then attach this. And there's no reason not to. There's no reason not to, as I can see, not put the water pump on and paint all of this, the blue color that they want it painted, and then attach this later. I think that would be just fine. Well, that doesn't, it's like there's a little bump there. Yeah, it's uneven there. It needs to be, this needs to be sanded like that, just a little bit. So it has a flat front surface. Yeah, you can see that this is higher than that, that the two sides aren't exactly even. Okay, so these four pieces are going to get cemented onto this. I could put this on first, I guess, as long as there's give in it, because they can kind of rattle around a little bit. Well, they all need to go on together, and then I need to do that in a way where I don't get cement all over my fingers, which I almost certainly am going to end up doing. I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try my best to not get cement on my fingers as I manipulate the parts to hold it in place. Let's find out. Let's all find out together how well I succeed at that. This is where you find out that why I don't use CA cement. Okay, because I don't get parts in the right place right away. Great. And I hold them the wrong way, you know. Like I put that on backward. That was really good, wasn't it? Okay. So there, this is why I wanted to put them all on at the same time so I could make sure that they were in alignment. Yeah, that looks okay. Okay, and then I should just stop. I should stop messing with it because that's not going to do any good messing with it like that. Yeah, and then this bit goes on the front. I'm gonna put cement around these prongs, a little bit around the edges. Okay, so the way this is supposed to go now is that, oh, well, that's not good. That needs to adhere better. Can't this up. I'm getting cement on everything. Yuck. Okay, so this is going to be painted, um, the transmission part, which starts here, this edge. Okay, that goes all the way around. There's a nice edge to it. That has to be painted aluminum. And then the engine block itself, all of this in front of that edge is painted kind of a glossy blue. And I found that if I mixed the flat blue with a little bit of the pearlescent blue, which I have as a sample, yeah, here. Okay, this is the flat blue. I tried two blue colors and I tried like washing it, kind of like overlaying it with this pearlescent. Okay, that didn't work. But then I mixed a little of the pearlescent in, a little bit, and then a little bit more. This is like 50-50, and this is maybe 20-80. If I mix a little of the pearlescent in with the flat blue, it gives us this color, which is just a little bit shiny. And I think is going to be just perfect for all of this up here. I'm going to hand brush that. You can just see that there's just all sorts of nooks and crannies, and I mean just a lot of it there that needs to be painted, and so I'm going to hand brush all of that. And then this too. The question is, after it's primed, do I paint the aluminum first, or do I paint the blue first and then the aluminum? Because I want a nice clean edge. I think I need to paint the blue first. It needs to get way down in the crevices there. And if I try to get the paint in there and this is painted aluminum, I'm going to get it on the aluminum. And I don't want that. So this way, if I paint the blue first and then the aluminum, I can get the blue in there. And actually I can, if the blue is going to show through the aluminum because it's kind of translucent, I can just like sand off the blue paint from the ridge here. Okay, well, putting that extra cement on worked. That was a good thing. Yeah, it looks okay from the top and from the sides. Yeah, this will do. So this is ready to be primed. You can see primed on the top and the bottom. So that's going to go on the to be primed list. I think I'm going to stretch a little bit. I accomplished something. That was pretty good. I did some sanding and some assembly. I haven't even used up an hour yet. Wow, things are really moving. Wow. Okay. Well, the next thing I'm going to do is it's going to look a little odd. I'm going to paint. I'm going to paint these two bits. But this poses a little bit of a challenge because this tiny little prong here goes into the. Well, I'm not going to mess with that. There's an opening on the top of the motor on the intake manifold, the part on the top that I just cemented on. Okay, but it all has to be painted black. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the little prong thing here and let it set and dry. And then there's this little hole that I used to hold it while I was priming it. Okay, is after that paint is on, then I'll put it back in there and paint the top. This gets painted aluminum on the back and the front. I'll paint the back first. I might just keep it on here like that. And this, I'm going to paint the aluminum pulleys first and then the black belt because the black will cover the aluminum. Yeah, that's what I'll do. It has to be painted front and back as well. So I'll paint when I get the aluminum paint out, I'll paint the back. This is the starter. This has to be painted black all the way down to the edge. And I'm hoping that if I hold it there on that little piece of tape and paint it, that it'll go all the way down to the edge. I might have to do a little touch up. Well, yeah, let's do some painting. Yay. This brush should work. Oh, wow. This never got cleaned. How did it get so stiff? It's going to require this. I'm kind of glad I checked that, but this is going to require some significant solvent. Yeah. I don't know what's in here, but whatever it is, it glued together all the bristles. We'll see how this painting goes. I do want to get this, well, I don't have to, but I'd like to get the seats prepared for priming, because when I prime the engine, yeah, I really should do those first. Okay, I lied. I'm not going to do painting right away. I'm just thinking about effective use of time, and making progress. And if I'm going to prime stuff, I would just as soon prime a bunch of stuff together, in one go, instead of like, oh, the engine and then the seats. And then I can get them all done at once and move along. So I'm going to prep the seats for priming rather than painting those little bits. I'm not going to be doing the painting that I said I was going to be doing. Plans have changed. Well, it wasn't really a plan. The doing of things is in a different order now. So these seats are sort of they're pretty close looking like the original. Um, I did look up interiors because I was thinking some of this, some of this would be, and I was right. Like this ridge along here, this is on the outside of the seat facing the door. That has to be painted chrome, as is this little lever here. But all along the edges here, um, see the seam here isn't that big of a problem because that's where the chrome part is. But all along the top here and down this side, that seam is really a big problem. It has to go away. So I'm going to be doing, yeah, I'm going to be doing more sanding here. And there's a lot of plastic that needs to come off. And then I'll be using this 400 grit to do that, like I did with the engine block, and then I'll be polishing it after that. I don't know how this side is going to turn out. Just have to sand away and see if the seam disappears or not. I might have to put filler in it. Just like a lot of models, the parts sometimes just don't fit. They just don't. And what I'm feeling is that yeah, that edge is higher than this. So there, yeah, it needs a lot of sanding because the parts aren't aligned. And then on the top here, there's all this flashing. Just really a mess. So we're getting some quasi sort of relaxing sanding. Just a lot of fixing here. I have even coarser sandpaper and some files, but I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's a very, very high raised edge. This is gonna take a lot of plastic removal here. This all to come together. Fortunately, there's a lot of plastic there to be removed without. If the upholstery shop did a job like this, they would have been fired. They never would have survived at the Shelby garage. Seats show up looking like this. Nope. They would have been sent right back and no payment would have been issued. It's especially important on the top here. Wow. Yeah, they don't come anywhere close to matching. I tried to get them lined up all along the sides and they seemed to fit, but they didn't fit across the top. But as long as I can get that ill-fitting ridge disappeared, it would be okay. There's a little rimmer on the back here. I think that should be chromed also. It looks like it's yeah. I couldn't I couldn't get a picture of the back of the seats, so I'm not sure. I know that that is, and the lever on the other side. Painting this, painting that would be a challenge. I might take that up though. Yep, I stopped talking, didn't I? Yeah, that's going to keep happening. I have mentioned that I have run out of material. The stream has been going on, what, for several years now, and almost everything that I can think of to talk about, I've pretty much talked about. Cartoons, superheroes, you know, lengthy discussions about what is a hero and what isn't a hero, vacuum tube industry, car parts, and how car maintenance is something that people don't even think about anymore. But back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, car maintenance was just all one thought about. There was constant, constant replacing of parts and tuning of parts and things of that sort, just all the time, because cars just got a whole lot better. And because of materials, the materials got a lot better, and so a whole lot less work needs to be done to keep a car running than it used to be. Should do a before and an after on these things to show you how aggressive sanding and some then polishing makes the seat look better. Well, I'll compare these. Is this on camera? Yeah, huh. It is on camera. How about that? Yeah, well, yeah, I don't have anything to talk about, so I'm not talking. How about that? That's the consequence. That is the consequence of not having monologue material. You know, when I built a submarine, I could talk about nuclear Armageddon. When I was building the Savoia, I could talk about Porco Rosso. Um, when I was building the Apollo, I could talk about the space race. When I was building the Lotus Ford, I talked about all the different, you know, how car racing changed, the massive changes in that sport. I mean, I could talk about car parts again and how many parts need to be changed out in a car nowadays versus how they used to have to replace practically every part on every mechanical part in a car over the life of the car, which was much shorter than it is now. It's kind of amazing, you know, these GT350s right nowadays, if you wanted to buy one, are really quite expensive. Although compared to a new car, it's not that much, but you could buy, because everybody saved their Mustangs, you know, it became a collectible. Everybody saved them. So there's a lot of 65, 66, 67 early Mustangs around. Some of them in pretty good shape, some of them pretty heavily modified and restored. But you can still buy one in running condition for the price, kind of the price of a used car in the 20,000 bracket. Can't buy a new car for that anymore. Of course, keeping it running is expensive. Well, here you can compare, I don't know how much you can see, but you can compare this seat to this seat. Okay, in terms of you know, the seamage, especially along the top there. Polish this, and then um, where'd my little polisher thing go? Here, and then prime it, and then see if the seams are still, you know, you can still sort of see it, but I don't feel it, so it's just a color difference where the seam has been. There's still a really, you know, there's an indentation there. I wonder if I can get away with saying that that's part of the upholstery. But the seam there is just, there's a little indentation, which I probably should fill in. Probably should fill that. Yeah, I probably should put filler in here along these seams and then sand it again. So there's no sense polishing it if I'm going to be doing that. Oh well. I mean, I could make the claim that that's seam in the upholstery, but it's not. When I look at the pictures of the interior, it's not. There's not a seam there. So I'm going to put, like I did with the engine block, I'll put that filler in the seam and then sand that down and see how it ends up looking. Yeah, there's so much excess plastic on the back that I'm just going to file it before I sand it. Otherwise, it'll take even longer than it would take me going at the pace I go, which is pretty slow. So how many times can I talk about the compromise between the coarseness of the grit, or in this case the file, and the time it takes to sand things or file them versus sanding out the scratch marks later. I think I've talked about that dozens of times already. What is it like? It bears repeating. I don't know why there's a bear involved. Probably bears repeating just so I can fill in the silence here. Yeah, so what's going to happen here is that this is just going to take one more stream. I was hoping to prime these at the same time I primed the engine. Okay, because, just going up spraying with stuff with primer, why not get as much done as possible? But that's not going to happen because the seams didn't fill in from the cement, from the melted plastic, at least not all of them. And so I can still feel that they're there, and they're not supposed to be there. So I'm just going to lay a line of that filler along there, and then on Monday, I'll sand that and then do some priming. I am going to prime the engine though, and maybe some other parts. I'll pull some other parts out to get primed, but I want to prime the engine so I can paint that next week. So what I'll be doing, my priority now for the next hour and a half is getting parts ready for priming, of which these seats are not. They're pretty close, they're really close, but just not quite right. Even though the part that where the seam is showing the most is going to be the most invisible part. Most invisible part of it. I'll know it's there, and it'll just be annoying to me. I was unpleasantly surprised, though, at how poorly the two halves of the seats, the fronts and the backs, fit together. Really, really badly. It's as though they weren't even designed together, and then you'd think that the seat would be designed and then they would just sort of break it up to make the mold. It's almost as though they were designed in two separate times and places. So this is okay sandpaper, but it loses its grit really fast. That's the issue I have with it, is that it you can see, how the plastic dust fills in. This is where one of those power sanders, I'm sure, would really be useful. Doing what I'm doing here in the quarter of the time. But there's nothing more relaxing than watching me rub things with sandpaper, is there? So I thought about painting the interior of this not black. Okay, the original cars, the interiors were black. Every image that I've seen of the GT350, they have a black interior. And one could probably have special ordered it or done an aftermarket. I was thinking it would look really good with a blue interior, but it just doesn't exist. And so even though I'm going to do an aftermarket paint job, blue with a white stripe instead of white with a blue stripe, even though I'm going to do that, I'm going to keep the interior closer to the original and paint it so that it's black. That was weird. It was just a weird noise in the background. You can't hear the weird noises because I think it's called a pop filter on the microphone. So it filters out all the background noises. You can't hear the dogs barking. You can't hear the furnace running. You can't hear the paint can popping because of the change in pressure. What's that? Really? Yeah. Forgot about the sprue attachment at the front here. It's one on the other one too. That's unsightly. Wow. Yeah, there's flashing around the edges too. I need to sand that. Good thing I saw this because there's yet more flaws in the molding. Where's my 1000 grit? There's some 1000 grit paper here. Sorry. It's just always something. This is where the sprue was attached. Okay, and it came off, and there's just the leftover plastic from that, leaving a bulge. It's a little bulge there. And that shouldn't be there. It just shouldn't. And then around the edges here, around the edge of the seat cushion, there's a little flashing where the plastic oozed out around the edges of the mold. I mean, between the seams of the mold, not the edges. These are the edges left over from where the plastic oozed out between the two halves of the mold. Now there's going to be one there too. See, lump lump of plastic there. Yeah, it's flashing there is bad. Hi, who? You can hear the sanding? Trying the new rotary tool. Oh, geez. That's right. There's a whole, like, Alexis showed that to me, our DM. I have to admit, I forgot all about it. It's been such a long time since I've been doing this, but I was shown that, and it's a rotary sanding tool that I could be using. Well, thanks for dropping in. I will do a flip. In fact, I will, after I'm done marring the surface with the file here, Um, I'll get out a New Year's flip. Here, it's not my flip box. If you can hear the sanding, then that means that the pop filter isn't working, and then you can hear all sorts of stuff in the background. Huh. I wonder if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing. There were just a whole lot of updates and reinstallations and all sorts of stuff with the software that's running this stream over the holidays and while it was gone. So maybe the pop filter, whatever it is, just isn't turned up. I'm not sure. Well, here, we'll either have sear or not sear. Not sear. Sear 2-1, 2-2, 3 not sear, 4-2 not sear wins over sear. That was your New Year's flip. I flipped you off for New Year's. Yay. But yeah, I mean, light sanding is okay. I guess the furnace running in the background. Can you hear that? Like the whirring sound, kind of a light humming noise. I don't know if you can hear that or not. The next time Alexis is not overwhelmed with everything else that's going on, because there's all sorts of stuff going on. Next time she's not overwhelmed with that, I'll let her know that the pop filter might not be on the microphone. The filter on the microphone might not be working. There, standing right next to the microphone. Maybe that means you can like hear the dog barking and people walking around upstairs. Vacuum cleaner running, sometimes that happens. I'll have to try to remember the rotary tool and give that a try. I need to practice using it on like sprue or excess plastic or something of that sort, right? And I'll to do that before I start like gouging into pieces of plastic because I can't control it. So just to let everybody know, yeah, I'm back and I'll be on my regular schedule from 10 until 1. I don't know. I didn't look at the greeting screen kind of to see if the schedule's been changed. It always says from 10 until 2, but that has not been true for a very, very long time. It's 10 until 1 on Mondays, still Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I have to check to see that. There's a bunch of things. Actually, it's, kind of surprising that this is even working. I had to reboot everything on Monday to make sure it was even running. And then yesterday, OBS wasn't working. I figured out how to get that going. Yeah, so sometimes it's just a minor miracle that I can get the stream running at all. Okay, well, there's a mess of, this is all just, why did I even put it in there? This is all dead sandpaper that just goes in the trash pile, which is over there in the way. And then I'm going to put the filler in on the seams here, and then on Monday I'll sand the seams one more time after the filler sets. So I think I'm going to get some more parts out to be primed before I really start painting stuff. Should almost have my head magnifiers on for this so I can see what I'm doing. I don't think there's any seams showing up here, but yeah, it's going to get sanded. It's going to get sanded. So I'm going to stick some of this along where the seam is, and hope it ends up looking okay. So who can you see outside from where you are? I know that the snow started before I started the stream. I saw it start to fall. I'm just wondering if it's accumulating, pretty much or not. It's supposed to start. The weather said the snow would be starting about 9 o'clock, and 10 after 9 the snow started. So they were pretty accurate about that. We're supposed to get snow. It's supposed to snow all day today and tonight and into tomorrow, accumulating anywhere from maybe 2 to 5 inches. Half an inch so far. Yeah, it's just gonna keep going, I guess. So yeah, we'll probably get like 3 or 4 inches total, which is fine. Makes things look okay again when the snow starts to melt and it's like half melted. Everything's just shades of grayish brown and um, muddy, wet and muddy, and I don't know. The dogs really like it because there's all sorts of, yeah, yeah. To make sure that Lexi gets out there and plows the driveway, and oh yeah, the streets too. If they can plow the streets, that would be good. Then cars could actually go where they're supposed to go. Okay, so far, as you know, every show should have like a tagline. um, and this one is relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons, but there's hardly ever any painting going on. But the tagline is not getting very much done, but taking a long time to do it. And I've been at this an hour and a half. Okay. And what I've managed to do is I managed to sand the seams that I filled in on the engine here and attach these parts. I just saw it flash. It looked like the part was loose, but it's It's not loose at all. It just, is it? Can't be, I don't know. Weird. So this is ready to be primed, and then on Monday I can paint this blue in front and aluminum in the back. And I don't know if I'm going to get to painting these bits today or not. I might paint these bits a little bit, at least the glossy black. The filler on these needs to set, needs to cure, and on Monday I'll sand those and get them ready for priming. But if I'm going to be priming the engine, I'm going to get some more parts out and prep those for priming. So I'll probably not get around to doing the painting here today, like I was kind of thinking I would, because I just want to spray primer on stuff over the weekend. I need to get the box of parts. I'm getting a box of parts here. So the parts I can get the shelf. That's it. That's just the shelf for the spare tire, and there's the spare tire. They make a big deal about the fact that there is a covered spare tire. This just lays on the shelf in the back of the car. You can see it on the images of the real car. There's this flat vinyl wrapped tire laying on a shelf behind the seats, just laying there. I hope it's attached. I hope it's attached to something so that if they hit the brakes too hard, the spare tire doesn't go flying and smashing people in the back of the head. That would be a bad thing if that happened. It's the kind of thing that could happen, though. Okay, I'm going to say, if I've been cleaning up my work surface, there'd be plenty of room for these things, but I haven't, and so there isn't. These go on the bottom of the car. The bottom of the car is in that box because you can't see it. It's over there. There's a box where the bottom of the car is this part here. That's been primed. And what I'm taking off of the screws now is the whole rear axle and rear suspension and the whole front suspension bit. Okay. And I'm going to spend a good deal of time cleaning those up because they're roundy parts and there's flashing all around all of the roundy bits, which make them look like they're not round, but that they're just molded plastic. I may or may not get the traction bars out. Depends on if I find them or not. These shock absorbers are already out and they're primed. So I'm getting the bits for the bottom of the car. Maybe I'll get the exhaust headers out too. Those are really poorly done. I'm going to be spending the last hour and 15 minutes or so. What I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be sanding parts and getting them ready for priming. It's something that needs to be done. And with the round parts, what one always finds is that the tops and the bottoms of the molds didn't mesh very well. And then there's this little ridge of plastic. You can feel it. It's really a sharp little ridge that needs to be sanded. It needs to be sanded off of everything. There's part. And these are shock absorbers. These come later. They go like here. They get attached much later. I could probably deal with those now too, but I'm not going to. I'm going to just stick to these bigger parts that I can just lay in the box and prime. without having to tape them on. These are safer here than if I take them off and end up losing them somewhere along the line. There. I think I'm going to, yeah, I'm going to pull the exhaust headers out too. These guys. I don't know what that is. I'll have to find out. I wonder where the shock absorbers, where the traction bars are. Oh, there they are. Oh yeah, those are. Yeah, the flashing on those is really bad too. So what you're going to be doing here over the next hour is listening to me grumble about poor injection molding and how much work needs to be done to get the parts presentable and even to get to fit. Did they really have to attach this in 3 places? Really? I do not think that was necessary. Can you hear the sawing? Does the saw sound come through? Yeah. Yeah, but relaxing painting is just, it's such a lie. Painting happens at way less than half the time on this stream. And it isn't always very relaxing either. So abrasive sanding would be, I think, a more honest thing, more honest label for it. Is that 59? I'm really curious about what that is. I don't know what that part is. It looks like it's part of the exhaust system. And this is only washer fluid, lights. Decals. The Shelby grill. Oh, it's the radiator hose. Huh. Wow, that's interesting. Oh yeah, and they want you to stick that in when everything else is all put together. That'll be fun. There, it goes in between the radiator and the engine, and if they aren't the right distance from each other, it's just going to look stupid. But it will be what it will be when the time comes for it to be its time. Yeah. I don't want to use a 320 sandpaper. I want to use the 1000 grit on this. I'm pretty sure that would be the wise thing to do, is just use a really fine grit, because I don't want to make these things not round. I'll probably need to use a file on it. But you can see, I don't know if you can see or not, that all around the edges, including inside where it's going to be really hard to get to. I have to file that. There's this, wow, a lot of that there. It's almost like here, the two sides of the mold didn't even match up. This is going to take a long time to clean this up. This is very bad. This is very, very badly done. Thank you, Monogram. Yeah. And then it's over on this side. The two sides of the molds did not line up. And so there's a big ridge on both sides, on either side. Sigh, grunt, grumble, grumble, sigh, sigh, grumble, grumble. Yeah, I wonder if that power sander would work on this without tearing up the plastic too much. I need to give that a try sometime. But I've got this. This is, yeah, I'd like to show it this stuff, to which, all the plastic parts are attached, like these shock absorbers still are. It's called a sprue, and it's the same plastic material as everything else, but it's just excess. And so the power sander thing, it's like a smaller, for those, I'll just use a brand name, Dremel. Okay, those of you who are familiar with Dremels, it's like a smaller, more easily made, hopefully, easily controlled one of those. And if I'm really careful with it, it might make this go way faster. It comes with little sanding discs and other abrasive tools that could be really useful in getting these things to be the way they need to be. Just a big bump there where it was attached to the sprue. This is one of those things that the book I was talking about, how to make airplane models. They say that this has to be done all the time. Usually on airplanes, it's just the landing gear that have the landing gear struts that are round like this, that have ridge marks on them. Yeah, even holding on to them. Nothing is easy today. I want to get right there and then. So I've said this before too, and I'll say it again. The only good thing about this is that the plastic is soft, so it sands fairly quickly. You know, if these were metal parts, it would be quite a bigger. It would be a bigger chore. Yes, it is. It's not fast. There's a lot of like, and the parts were the two halves were misaligned, and so it's not just a little tiny line of really thin plastic. It's that they're not lined up, and so one has to be sanded down to the level of the other. Mm, not good. It's just not good. It's on the outside of the exhaust, which is going to show. You're going to really see it. When you can look at it in the light and still see the seam, you know that that's an issue. And the problem with this is that sanding it down like that um, gets the part out of round, so it ends up being oval instead of round. But better oval than having a seam like this, showing like that. Yeah, but this is how I end up using my catchphrase. Didn't get much done, but took a long time to do it. And that is certainly true of this model. So we've got, I think it does, abrasive sanding. Just being, we could just say being abrasive, with Dyson Dungeons. How would that go? That sounds good. We could just say that. I'm fine with just saying being abrasive with Dyson Dungeons. I can be abrasive. I have to be abrasive in a PG. Not, there isn't any PG. I don't want any parental guidance at all. I don't even know what the rating is for something that doesn't even need. It's just G. You know, PG-13 is you're supposed to have parental guidance up to the age of 13, and you can do whatever the hell you want. Ah, I said hell. So there, got PG-13 right there. But what if you don't want any kind of parental guidance involved in viewing the stream? I don't know what the label for that is. It shouldn't be PG because I don't want parental guidance. That's what PG stands for, parental guidance. Okay. These bits on the inside, I'm going to have to get. Almost need a razor blade for this. There it is. Got this pin with a T head on it. Like that. Not this, but this, so that it makes it easier to grasp. So this is the inside. I'm not terribly worried about the inside and how that looks, because that's going to be, against the engine, but like here. You probably can't even see what I'm messing with here, but there's flashing on the inside of these little nooks here. It's really pretty hard to get to. Poking at it with a pin, hoping for the best. So I've almost got one of these done. What did it take? Almost a half hour to do one of these. I knew it would be a problem, but didn't expect it to take the better part of forever. Well, I guess I should take that back. I actually did expect it to take the better part of forever. And it did. I guess it would be easier if I could actually hold on to parts. We'll find out after it's primed how it ends up looking. Guess that's not too bad. Put it up there with the engine. There's another one here. This one is just as bad as the first one. So, have at it. Now I'm all hunched over. My back is going to be achy. So buttons, these zippers, modern zippers. I said that before. Very careful, little bits of filing on the corners there. I can't get it with the sandpaper otherwise. This one isn't. This one is not as badly misaligned as the other one was. There's still a ridge on it, but it's not like the other one where they were. The two halves didn't match up. At least it's not as bad, but it's still not good. As I can see around the edges here, on the corner. Yeah, it's really bad here. Yeah, I misspoke. I was just looking at the wrong spot, but it's not good. I'm gonna I'm gonna say that odds are pretty high. That is to say that it's likely that after this is primed, I'm going to have to sand it some more because I'm going to see that I wasn't totally successful in getting the seam gone. But when it's white on white like this, and it's kind of shiny. It's hard to tell. You can't put I can't put too much pressure on this either because then I'll snap apart, and then it's a bigger problem. This was easier when I was maybe 12. I would just take a single edge razor blade and scrape it. Probably should just do that now. Yeah, turn it over and it looked okay from one side, but not from this side at all. At least on this side, I've got a place to kind of hold it. I probably should have gone ahead and used the coarser sandpaper. But what else is there to do other than do sanding? Filing and sanding with Dyson Dungeons. I'm doing that a lot on all of these models. And there's a lot of it on the Pogo. That required a lot of abrasion. But it actually got finished. That was a surprise. Despite the fact that the decals totally disintegrated, that was also a surprise. A very unpleasant one. It was kind of like when the decals disintegrated on the Lotus Ford, the race car. And it was unpleasant. And the new ones were good. But that happens. If you buy aftermarket kits, a lot of times the sellers will say the decals are there, but they're old. There's no way to know if they're going to work or not until you try. And then sometimes they just fall apart and sometimes they don't. I was really lucky, considering the frequency with which decals seem to fall apart. What is that? There's a lump right there. Is it where the screw is attached? The Enterprise command bridge, all of the display screens, those were all decals. They were big decals, and without them, everything would look really terrible. But all of those decals worked just fine, despite their age, because they were like 30 years old. I think the kit was made in the 90s. So that was kind of a surprise looking back at it. It was quite a serious surprise, really, that those decals all worked. Because otherwise, that kit would have just been horrible. You really would. It would be kind of pointless with the display screens not displaying anything. I was able to salvage the pogo by sliding the little pieces together. There are only a couple of places where they broke so much I couldn't use them. Um, Little danger triangles on the air intakes. And of course, there is danger there. You don't want to be sucked into an jet engine. That would be unpleasant. I can't imagine that being a good thing at all. But those decals both broke apart. I was able to get one to kind of piece together, and the other one was, well, it was pretty significantly flawed if you look at it closely, where the decal broke apart. The yeah, the markings, one of the two markings for the wings totally fell apart. Fortunately, I was able to get together the one at the top of the wing, the one that really showed in the bottom of the wing. Well, it just doesn't have the markings on it because the decals broke up into many, many little pieces and shattered pretty much. It was like glass shattering almost. Could not be put back together in any meaningful way. The decals on this, there's not very many I'm going to end up using. There's the Carroll Shelby GT-350 thing for the license plate. Hopefully that'll work. And I think there's one for the dashboard. That one's for the glove compartment, which is a facsimile of Shelby's signature. That one's important. I hope that works because there isn't any way to just do that by painting. I mean, it probably is if somebody were incredibly skilled at tiny, tiny little detail and steadier hand than I have even. Um, the other big decals were the stripes. Okay, the blue stripe on the white body, but I'm not using that because I'm doing white stripe on a blue body, so that'll all be done with paint. And so yeah, so the other decal that I'd like that I it's going to be hard to use is there's a side stripe right down by the below the doors. There's a stripe with it that says GT350 on it. And that's a blue decal because it was designed to be used on a white body. And I've been looking for a white one because I want to do white on blue, not blue on white. And I'm looking for an aftermarket um, white one, but I haven't found one. So I don't know. I might put the blue one on anyway, just to have something. I'm not sure. It depends on if it disintegrates or not and whether it even shows. It might not show very well against the blue on blue. And it's not accurate. It really needs to be white on blue. Can't cramp. little bits here where the sprue was attached. I don't mind filing that because that's where the cement goes. And right on the very edge, filing that isn't a big problem either, really, because uh, there's no place for scratch marks to show because it's just an edge. Yeah, and I've got this stuff on the inside. This one isn't quite as bad as the other one in terms of visible flashing on the inside here. The openings are bigger too, which is okay. Most of the visible problem is on the inside here where it's not going to show. Goes on the bottom of the engine like this, runs down, and then there's a side exhaust. The side exhaust pipes, they look really cool, but they're not cool. They're really hot. So it turns out that they're really a bad idea because when you're getting in and out of the car, you can bump your legs against the exhaust, which is maybe 500 degrees. It's hotter than the inside of your oven at maximum. Um, yeah, I can give rise to some nasty burns. So yeah, they look cool, but they're very, very dangerous. Okay, I think this is coming along okay. So I still have a little time. I'm gonna probably not tackle this. I'm not going to tackle that. There's just way too many little bits to it, but I can tackle this one. Tackle it, take it on. I'm going to work on that one and probably get that one ready for priming. Well, it's doesn't look. It looks like it's not too bad. Oh, you can see this is these all along the drive shaft here. You can maybe you can see that it's not round, that there's a flashing on it. And then just along the edges of the springs here, that's not a huge problem, but this is like here and here. There's just a lot of surface area that needs to be um, cleaned up on this. I guess I'll just start with the big long drive shaft thing here. Yeah, try not to break it. Yeah, this is another one of those where there's a lot that has to come off. Something misaligned. I'm going to use the 400 grit on this. It's just too much of it on too much. It's just way too much, too long. Sorry, just just sanding here and like muttering to myself silently about really this is the best they could do. This is why building models when you're 10 years old is so much faster than building models when you're not anymore. Is you know run a single edged razor blade down the line and I guess most of that's off. Sure, why not? Looks good. And it's cemented together, maybe painted, maybe not. Probably painted black if I had the paints, right? But here it's you can't have the drive shaft with a big plastic seam running down the side. And that's just one side of it. And I have to do the other side. That's where the screw is attached. That needs to be filed off first. I'm starting to get a little impatient here. Not the best thing to do, even with just sanding. Okay, it's not the best thing in the world to be impatient when doing this sort of thing. That's when nasty things can happen, like snapping the drive shaft off. That would not be good. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to make an effort to not snap the drive shaft off as I'm sanding this. I'm getting impatient at the amount of plastic that needs to come off to make this presentable. Yeah, see, these things, I've said this over and over, if the two halves of the mold don't quite fit tightly together, okay, I get that. But when they don't line up with each other, they just don't line up with each other, and then you end up with this fraction of a millimeter, but still highly visible misalignment, of the plastic sticking out one side versus the other. It just, and really, was that necessary? Was it necessary to have that be like that? I say no, it wasn't necessary. But this kit was probably, I don't know, I'm guessing this kit is at least 15, maybe 20 years old. It's not one of the newer ones. I'm just going to sand the entire drive shaft so that it has a consistent surface texture. Yeah, maybe I'll polish it. Why not? Okay, well, along the back here, it's pretty bad. It's a big seam along the inside and the outside of the drive shaft. Not the drive shaft, but the axle. And on the differential case, it's really bad on the differential case. I've got like 20 minutes left. I think I'll be able to finish this. I think I'll be able to finish this before the end of the stream. I can get it primed over the weekend. Think so anyway. Hoping so. It's important to have awkwardly shaped parts. so one can't get their sandpaper into the place where it needs to go. Okay, just slow down. Slow down. Yeah, I was getting really impatient there, and just that wasn't making it go any faster. So this is the differential. You don't have those on a lot of cars anymore because they're front wheel drive. But when the engine was in the front, it turned this entire drive shaft and it went inside of this box here, this housing, and there were gears, carefully engineered gearing that translated this rotation into that rotation, 45-degree angle, 90-degree angle gearing. That was very important because otherwise you couldn't get the car to go. And there was like a lot of grease on the inside of that to lubricate the gearing, and that had to be replaced from time to time because the lubricants were not nearly as good then as they are now. They didn't last as long. So you had to drain the oil in your differential every now and then and replace it. One of the many things that maintenance in old cars used to require, stuff needed to be done on these cars like all the time to keep them from becoming broken. I'll just say broken, yeah, like unusable because lubricants would leak out or dry up, and gears would seize up, or engines would blow up because of the heat. All sorts of ways. Used to be all sorts of ways that we don't have nowadays very much to make cars break. They've gotten more complicated now, but the materials are so much better that they hold up without having to be constantly lubricated or replaced. Like they used to be. I've talked about that before, like mufflers. When was the last time you changed a muffler on a car? Used to be every year or two. You'd have to put a new muffler on because they would just rust out from the inside. You could spend a lot of money maybe on a stainless steel muffler and maybe get 3 years out of it. So as well, it's not worth paying 3 times as much if all you do is get 30% more in terms of longevity. These are the trade-offs when one was not terribly wealthy, all sorts of trade-offs on car maintenance. And how much do you spend on something to keep it from going bad again? Is it worth repairing? How do I keep this running? There are lots of do-it-yourself things too, like spend an entire weekend changing the brake pads on the old drum brakes. You just spend an entire weekend doing that, cleaning parts in gasoline, putting the parts together, testing them, hoping you got it right. Because it was either you spent the weekend doing that or you spent half a week's wages paying somebody else to do it. Believe it or not, despite the huge price for a new car, they are actually a better value than they used to be, in that they last longer and they require much less maintenance over the lifespan of the car. Yeah, it's hard to believe that, but it is. But that part is actually true. That they're a better value now than they used to be. I'm just taking a little shortcut here and filing away some of the excess. There's a lot of it there. Not surprisingly, but disappointingly, this has taken what, like an hour, feels like, at least, to get this part cleaned up enough to be able to prime it. It'd probably be faster if my fingers were more nimble, and maybe if I used the rotary tool. And if they weren't so disappointingly poorly made. So Dyson Dungeons, yeah, Dyson Dungeons is not about this. This is just a way of keeping me out of everybody's hair for 3 hours, 3 days a week. I've become convinced that that's the main reason I'm encouraged to do this, is that if I'm down here doing this, I'm not in the way. Otherwise, okay. You know, go upstairs. Yeah, I'm okay with that. If that's the way it is, that's the way it is, right? But this isn't what Dyson Dungeons is about. Dyson Dungeons is about, it's Dungeons and Dragons show. It's not just a basement game being streamed It's a real show. It's well produced, well acted. Um, we as players really get into our characters. We make them come alive. They develop their own personalities, which are different than the players, because they're the characters. So we take that all really quite seriously, and it all takes place in a world that was created by our DM. It's an incredibly imaginative, funny, and sometimes extremely dangerous world. So there's humor, danger, all the things you should have in a show. And it streams with a live chat on Twitch on Sundays at 2. But for your convenience, you can catch up and watch all of the episodes on YouTube or listen to them as a podcast. It actually works as a podcast, believe it or not. And so, when you're at work or you put on some headphones or driving or something, you can listen to our show, and you need to do that because our D&D show is just amazing. And that's what this is. This is about advertising our D&D show. So I did that. And this started because we do our own dungeon tiles, which next week I'll pull them out. I haven't done that this week yet, and show you our dungeon tiles and some of the minifigs that have been produced in our 3D printers and painted on this stream in the past, maybe even in the future. I'm hoping we have some like D&D related painting stuff to do in the future. That would be fun. I haven't done that in a while. Yeah, that. So next week I'll pull those out and show them too, because they're very impressive, really. And that's how this show started. And then, well, stream, not really a show, just, stuff happening on a little ring camera here. And a surplus microphone that may or may not have a filter on it. It used to have a pop filter on it that filtered out everything except my voice, but that apparently got disabled in the latest series of updates. Oh, my legs are falling asleep too. Great. That's going to be bad if I stand up and, one's legs are, as they call them, asleep, but basically the blood's just, the nerve cells are just all unhappy. I think, I think this is okay now. I'm looking at it from multiple angles and I think I've got most of the flaws removed. Maybe not here. I just saw, just it's the light catching it. Like there's still right there. Well, as much as I can see anyway, which isn't always that much. I don't want to bother with my head magnifier for this, really. Yeah, without scraping away the detail here. Just getting rid of the mold marks. Yeah, the differential case looks, yeah, it looks okay. It's about 1:45. Okay, so I'm going to start wrapping up. This is where I talk about what I've managed to get done, which is not very much in a long time, but took a long time to do it, and what I'll be doing next. So what I'm going to do first is I've got just a couple of parts here that are ready to be primed, and a part that's not ready to be primed. I'm going to put this not ready to be primed in this box. And I'm going to get a little piece of paper towel. And I've got a lot of paper towel. I'm going to get some isopropyl alcohol and give these a wash because they're all covered with sanding dust. And that's not good because that will either keep the primer from adhering or get under the primer and make it just look all yucky. That's a technical term, yucky. Okay, these parts don't need to be in the box because they're not going to get primed, nor are the seats going to be primed. These already are primed. These need to be sanded because I put filler in the seams. So this can go. I'm going to put this in the other box. And put a paper towel over it. This is the box into which the things that will be primed are going. I'm going to prime them in the box so that they don't get lost in the process. So I've got way less than I was hoping to get done here today. I was hoping that the seats would have come out okay, but the seams still showed, and that's not good. So I need to not prime them now. But these are going to get primed. Those, if they come out okay, I'll be able to, on Monday, just jumping around kind of aimlessly here. If these come out okay, on Monday I'll, and the same thing with the engine, if this comes out okay after it's primed. The engine's okay, it's the transmission case that's the problem, potentially. If those come out okay, I'm going to paint the engine and paint the little bits that you saw that I stuck in the other box, and paint the exhaust headers, not the headers, but the exhaust pipes. I'll be able to do some painting on Monday. I think I'll probably do that. And then I've got some other parts that I like, the seats, and the other part that I had that's underneath the seats. Where did I put it? I just dropped it under here. Yeah. The seats need to be sanded. That needs to be sanded. Some more stuff to be primed later. I like to prime a lot of stuff all at once because a lot of the primer gets wasted. Okay. All the stuff that doesn't land on the part to be primed just ends up being a waste. And that's, I don't, I don't like wasting the paint, but it's all part of how spraying works. These look dead. This is still good. This is good. Put those there. Yeah, that's, well, yeah, this is a real mess. I've got a real mess here on my work surface as usual. But, okay, thanks everybody. I managed to get hardly anything done, but took a long time to do it once again. I've got the engine glued together, cemented together. I got some more parts primed, prepped for priming. I sanded down the seats and found that they weren't ready yet. So I put some filler in. That has to be sanded on Monday, as does that other piece and maybe a couple of other bits. I might pull out a couple other bits to be primed all at once the next time I do priming. Like the inner body and the shelf for the tire, the spare tire, that sort of thing. And I might actually on Monday get around to starting to paint some things. Some of these things are fairly straightforward to paint. They're just painted black or aluminum, or in this case, aluminum and blue. Well, the box top's not going on the box. It's just that kind of day. So yeah, so I managed to get nearly nothing done again, just a lot of sanding and grumping about poor build quality. And yeah, it doesn't look too bad. It's not real obviously flawed, that. No, I think it's okay. So these will get primed. This won't get painted. This is going to get painted black along with the bottom tray of the car, which is in this box over here, which is way over there. And then the other suspension part and the little parts, the shock absorbers, not the shock absorbers, but the traction bars. Those need to be set up too. Those all get painted black. I'm gonna do that all at one time. I'm pretty sure that that's how it's gonna go. So yeah, that was not terribly it was, relaxing abrasion, relaxing abrading. Almost progress. No, I really like my tagline. Got hardly anything done, but took a long time to do it. That's really it. It did take a long time. Got hardly anything done, but it did take a long time to do it. That's just the way it is. That's the way this stream works. So, watch our Dungeons and Dragons show. We could sell that on our store that we don't have yet. Dyson Dungeons, relaxing, getting hardly anything done, but taking a long time to do it. Watch our show. Watch our show. Be a follower. Be YouTube subscriber. Go to patreon.com/dice and dungeons. Become a patron. Support the show. Maybe buy me a new can of spray paint. You never know. Your patronage could be that valuable. I will see you on Monday at more or less 10. Have a good weekend. Those of you who have a weekend, those of you who have to work through the weekend, thank you so much for what you do. Bye.